Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. Because of the e-files, boy, there is so much coming out right now. This has accelerated the awakening on the planet drastically.
It's definitely something, you kind of got to keep your head on a swivel. You got to watch this and you got to watch that, because I feel both things are out there could distract us from something else.
Yeah, there's nothing but distraction after distraction going on. So, as you may or may not know, I mean, the talk of genetic intervention, manipulation, creating gene lines, and, man, just so much. There's so many different topics that have come out because of the e-files, including references, again, to the reptilian reality and the reality of these beings that are just outside our visible spectrum but are very, very real, and they actually do feed off of our energies. Oh man, the world is learning about LOOSH big time. I'm starting to understand the bigger picture. Think about your nightmares as a kid. You got to grab hold of control over those nightmares by pushing back, by anchoring yourself, rooting yourself, not showing fear, not being caught up in fear. I've shared with you guys before, one of the best sermons I ever saw in a church, it was in a Lutheran church, and it was on Easter, and it was all about the fact that the opposite of love is not hate, it's fear. And it's fear that the dark side controls us from and with. And we see when we look at the news that everything is always fear-based. And we're so programmed, and I've done this before. I mean, I've put out videos that were just light and fluffy, and nobody ever opens them. They don't look at them. They ignore them because they don't want light and fluffy, because they are indoctrinated into a fear-based system that programs you to be fearful and to look for fear.
It's actually an addiction, especially with humans. We're prone to need fear because it makes us feel alive. So that kind of deep-rooted programming starts in childhood.
Think about that. Are you addicted to wild roller coaster rides? Scary movies. All this is promoting the production of adrenaline in your body. And what now we know, a lot of people are starting to realize, there could be something right next to you on the couch or in your favorite chair while you're watching a scary movie, literally snacking on your energy like you're snacking on the popcorn watching the movie.
And that's why we talk about Buddhist detachment. So it's so important, because it puts you in the driver's seat where you are observing something without judgment. And that way you can see information and not become a snack.
Are you scared of the truth? Then don't watch. Cloned bodies from underground bases of the Illuminati. Again, telling you not to watch, you're more likely to watch. It's just the way the psychology works. We understand that what looks to be our leaders might not be our leaders at all. They might be something very, very different. I'm not sure what that was, that sound that just came off. Have you ever looked at the moon and wonder why it's there? Oh, well, why is it there? How did it get there? So close to us, and it's really too big, according to the science, in proportion to the Earth, to be natural. In fact, they've even kind of told us that it doesn't seem to be made of exactly the same compounds. Not like it broke off from Earth and just, stayed there trapped in our atmosphere. What did they find on the moon? What did they really discover on the moon? Did they ever really go to the moon? Was it all just Stanley Kubrick movies? Really, for the masses? And then again, how controlled? I think the question is not, are we being controlled? Obviously, everything about our life has been about control. How much, and what portion of what we've been brought up with is control? I think it's just about everything.
I think it is. It's just about everything, unless you really go deep inside and ground and root yourself daily. You're prone to getting pulled here or pulled there.
Yeah, shape-shifting reptilians and our stars. Are any of our stars really human anymore? Or are they all Well, have they had their bodies snatched, per se? How about the Nazi ties to the extraterrestrials? The Nazis were supposedly working with the Greys and also Pleiadians. And how about the reptilian component? And now people are starting to realize there's more than one reptilian species. We have the Dracos, the moon base. Is the moon really a base? Well, this is our friend, the Polish psychic Krzysztof Szakowski, again, who has been used by the authorities to find missing people and solve big murder mysteries and big crimes. He is very, very gifted. We talk about him all the time. I wanted to share this. This is his live stream he did yesterday. At about 38 minutes and like 20 seconds, somebody asked him a question. And the person said, yes, these are all puppets. Because what's he been focusing on? Christoph is focusing on Trump. And he's focusing on Netanyahu and Putin and Xi Jinping and, the politicians. And this person says, those are all puppets. Please focus on the far side of the moon. Be there in spirit from above and focus on what they want with us in the long run. You can do it. Yeah, so the person goes by the name Unmitrillian. So he reads it again. These are puppets. Please concentrate on the other side of the moon. Be there as a spirit from above and focus on what they care about in the long term with us. And the Lord can do it. Okay. So he's going into his meditative state to see. And that's exactly the type of technique you want to do. You want to focus on an area, feel yourself being pulled to it. What do you see? What do you see? And it's interesting to look at the play of the light and the shadows on his face as he's doing this. And then also his expression as he's getting certain visions. You could tell when he's being disturbed. Says, sound funny, but I'm sending myself there for a moment. I don't like space. I'm afraid of him. I guess that's probably a little mistranslation. Afraid of space. I can understand that. It's big out there and it can be spooky. And then we're watching. Oh, that feels like something just came up there on him. I know how that feels. Sometimes these things pop in like that. He just jumped and flinched. When you get something that's unexpected, it could be very disconcerting. You can see again. Whoa, he's taken aback. Whoa, I mean, that's recoiling. I've been there. I know exactly how that feels. It's very disconcerting to see some things that you don't expect to see. So he's zeroing in a little bit more. What is there really up there on the moon? That's a big question. I think also it's kind of interesting how the light keeps playing and the shadows coming in. Yeah, there's entities around all the time. So now he starts to describe. He's making kind of a pyramidal shape. There's a structure up there, a quadrangle that you have, which goes towards the tip like this and has ribs on this. It almost sounds like an antenna of sorts. Pyramidal shape antenna of some sort? I can't tell you this, but creatures like larvae and structures like larvae, like big fat larvae, are creatures there like darkness, some that live in darkness, whose nature is to live in darkness. If they live outside the darkness, they have to wear masks. They raise larvae, fat larvae, which are their food. In black magic and in other forms of magic too, there are these larvae They live in underground structures. Underground. They live in underground structures. So obviously, inside the moon. Creatures that can live for a very long time, but they can often vegetate, which means they can hibernate, enter hibernation, and they can be in a state of hibernation for a very long time. Then they vegetate, sparing their bodies. Possibly for whole periods of time like yugas? I don't know. Suck out experiences. Suck out experiences or feed on experiences. They need experiences that they are not capable of on their own. So that tells me that what he's talking about is more like thought forms because they don't have source spark in them. Mind Unveiled did a huge video on homunculus, like space vermin. Space vermin. So obviously space is not a vacuum. More like an ocean, a less dense ocean. Space vermin, larvae, feeding off of things, living inside the moon. Very, very curious stuff, to say the least. As he's still focusing in. The moon is not Earth's twin planet. The moon has reached the Earth. It has been brought to the Earth. It's not natural. It was brought here, placed here. Big revelations. Ties in with many, many legends and things that other people have picked up as well. The moon is not a natural twin to the Earth. Complete nonsense, he says. And he doesn't want to face it. But he has gotten, and he goes on to a question about oil. He has gotten other stuff before about the moon and the fact that it was brought here. And, his rational mind is rejecting, and also the fact that, he was brought up Christian. And so there's still some times where he has a hard time with the programming. When you think of the pyramidal structure or quadrangle structure that he's talking about, if we're looking at it on a flat manner, it might just look to be like a pyramid. Remember? Pink Floyd, the dark side of the moon. I'm sure you all have heard of that before. Quite a psychedelic vision. When we look to some of the movies that we've had, you remember the whole Alien and Prometheus series, and it did interact with the Predator series in some points. You see these egg-like larvae that are there, and they have like this black goo in them. Do you remember the old 1956 invasion of the body snatchers, where the pod people, literally there's these beings that grow when you sleep. Somehow they imprint you, and while you're sleeping, they're growing a replica of you inside of them. This is also, again, coming from that Alien series and the Prometheus movie, where you see the pods opened up because what was inside has come out. This is, looking at the discovery of some of these pod-like larvae type of structures. These old movies, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and they redid that in, I think, 78. Again, are they just simply telling us the reality because they have to, and it gets them off the karma wheel? It seems like they've done a lot of storytelling, very, very inventive, and imaginative invasion of the pod people. They will replace your body and devour your soul. Interesting. When you look at this whole concept, again, this film storyline concerns an extraterrestrial invasion that begins in a fictional California town of Santa Mira. Alien plant spores have fallen from space and grown into larger seed pods, each one capable of producing a visually identical copy of a human. As each pod reaches full development, it assimilates the physical traits, memories, and personality of each sleeping person placed near it until only the replacement is left. These duplicates, however, are devoid of all human emotion. They're flat. They don't they don't express the same type of emotions that we would. And that's how you can tell them apart. And that's how they could tell us apart. Because, things that might be shocking. I think there's one scene where a dog gets hit or almost hit. And the woman is all amongst pod people with the man. And she screams out. And then they know, oh, she's not one of us. She's one of them. How many of our leaders have already been replaced when you think about it? We know. I mean, there's so many Fettermans. The senator from Pennsylvania. How many Bidens? How many Trumps? How many? What happens when the original is no longer the one that we're seeing? Where did the original go? We've touched on a lot of this in other videos. Again, the idea of replacements for the original copy. We know there's a therapy out there. That RMAN, if we jumble that up, it's gene therapy. It's manipulating genetic sequences. Are they trying to facilitate some sort of takeover? Are they trying to create a type of human that can suit them and be totally manipulated and utilized by them? Again, if these entities are literally just outside of our visible spectrum, their frequencies are not quite that which can manipulate a 3D reality and fully immerse itself in a 3D reality. Maybe they need us as a template. Maybe they need us as a seed. Maybe they can alter a few things and create new versions that will suit them just fine, so they can supplant what was originally here and take over our place on this planet, so to speak. Are we literally looking at an invasion of the body snatchers? How far along is it? How many non-Homo sapiens, how many of them are not really us? Is it a minority? Is it the majority? What is really going on here? Is this something that happens on planet after planet, becoming assimilated into the Borg? When we look to Prometheus, we see these giants that are, referencing again the Anunnaki. Why would they drink a black goo substance that looks just like graphene oxide in nanotech to cause their demise, but out of which comes something purely demonic, something totally demonic? Why does AI, as this is David, he's an AI, entity that is facilitating this and seems to be thrilled and delighted in the takeover and turning us into demonic entities, or what we would clearly say are demonic entities. The black goo, the nanotech in the clouds. It's always coming down every day. It's all around us all the time. Earth was not the Anunnaki's home planet. In fact, Nibiru is again just one planet among so many that this dark power structure exists on. And Nibiru was taken over by this as Earth is in the process of being took over itself. And the system went to Mars and basically ended up in the physical destruction of Mars for 3D life and making it very difficult for life to exist on Mars. But they're still there. They're inside the planet again. And there are reptilians and greys and humans working inside the planet. When you look to Nibiru, it actually uses a black hole as a propulsion system. I wonder, was Soundgarden trying to tell us something about black hole sun and coming? And, the second coming of Nibiru and the second coming of the Anunnaki? Or is this not the second coming? Maybe they've been here time and time again in different eras. The thought is that the moon is a mirror reflecting Earth's land masses. So that would mean there's a lot more land that we don't see. Absolutely. In fact, again, when you look in the UN building, you'll see there literally is a picture that shows this in its entirety. It's pretty interesting. But does it really mean that the Earth is flat? Who cares if the Earth is flat or not? The bigger thing is the alien takeover, the extraterrestrial or demonic takeover. So, do we argue over it being an extraterrestrial takeover, or because they've been here for a while is not really a proper term? The reality is the takeover is what we need to be concerned with, not, again, arguing over the little details. This says Venus's Dracos built Earth's hollow unspinning moon from which to colonize Lemuria on Earth. Dracos settled mid-Pacific Lemuria. Dinosaurs were Draco beef. Well, we do agree that dinosaurs were Draco beef and steaks. A lot of them were. Not all of them. Some of them were pets. Others were experiments. And there are other reptilian entities on Earth, which we may call Nagas, which literally have been here far longer than us, or the Draco, or the Anunnaki either. So, yeah, there's a lot of things going on here. Lemuria was a high-frequency civilization. Mu was really fifth density. I view Lemuria as being more like Silver Age. And then when we talk about Atlantis, we're talking Bronze Age going into, the beginning of the Kali Yuga as Atlantis fell. But Atlantis fell because it was a takeover, a subtle infiltration that was happening. And then it ended up being an outright attack. And the Younger Dryas extinction event we view as an attack on the planet itself. And that Younger Dryas extinction event, that was also the period in which the moon was put into place, because before the moon was here, which many cultures know about and remember a time before the moon, it was more like, always a beautiful early summer, late spring type of environment. You had a totally different structure. The moon is what keeps the Earth locked into being tilted at 23.5. We actually go from 23.5 to 21.5. And this is what gives us our seasons. Before it was put in place, it was more of a Garden of Eden. And, things were very different. We didn't have the storms that we do now. It's the shifting and the constant wobbling and turning and the moon keeping us locked in this unnatural position, which leads to all this severe weather. Everything would be much smoother. Everything would be bountiful. And this is what, again, many tribes hold, many peoples hold in their myths that they've handed down. Evidence has been found in many parts of the world. In Bolivia, symbols on the wall of a courtyard of Calasasia, built about 13,000 BC, according to this, provide evidence the moon came into orbit around the Earth at a specific moment in time thousands of years ago, long before what mainstream historians refer to as recorded history. They go back just to about 6,000 years ago, again, because they're recording the history of the system in its entire takeover, which coincides with the rise of Sumer and, the Fertile Crescent and Akkadian, Sumerian, Babylonian, Persian, ancient Persian culture. All that really was the infiltration and the takeover of the system, taking over dominant position on the planet. Between the Younger Dryas period and that period, there was a series of ebb and flow wars and things going on. And it wasn't clearly dominated by any one group. This is where we have some of the mythologies like the Mahabharata and the battle, again, that we talk about, the Kurukshetra war, after the being Vishnu was no longer here, which really is symbolizing the benevolent ETs that were here with us, benevolent ultra-terrestrials that walked with us, helped us to build things and do things, and really told us honestly how the universe works, how we're eternal spirits in and of ourselves. We are just having a temporary human experience. This is where everything shifts to that Sumerian dominance, Abrahamic tradition dominance, which again is the control systems, religions that they bring in, which tell us we're a slave race. We're here to serve. We are a species that is dominated by other beings, and we are literally slaves to them now. This is not the teachings that were given to us prior to these beings taking dominance. No, we were told that the real source is in us, and you don't have to have any sort of dogma or belief system. Each one of us is a unique fractal of source. So very, very different set of beliefs come into place when you look to the Yoga Sutras, you look to the Tao Te Ching, and the like. Then you're getting some of the traditions and teachings that were given to us by the benevolent beings, the benevolent ultra-terrestrials that were out there. When you look to that more Abrahamic tradition, of which modern Christianity, Islam, and Judaism is really the core of that. That is really telling us that we are here to serve. It's just that simple. In Islam, why are humans, created by Allah? To serve Him. So it's literally telling you that you're slaves. And even when you look to Revelation, what is the end outcome of Revelation? It's that humans serve them again. That they are here amongst us and humans serve them. And what happens if humans don't serve them in the book of Revelation? Then they send storms, then they create famines, and then they stop the rain from falling. It's the same thing that we've seen all the time. And why would people want that? Because no, we are not meant to be slaves. According to Zulu legend, the moon was brought in hundreds of generations ago by two brothers of alien form, Wawani and Mapuku. Well, yeah, it's really fascinating to see again that there was a time when the moon wasn't in the sky, and that time was a better time. That was a better age. I do think when we're talking about that time, we're talking about the Silver Age and the Golden Age, and really it's only with the fall of those yugas, the rise of the Kali Yuga, that we've had the moon here, and the moon is absolutely a mothership.
I think that there's different layers going on, and I think the miss, the hit and miss, in my opinion, is where people can continue to believe that it's humans that are in charge, but they might be human vessels, but I do not believe that the spirit running through that vessel is of a human origin. It certainly does not act like it wants humans to succeed. It acts like it wants humans in turmoil for various reasons, and mostly that's to make them a source of food. And it's really an extremely difficult concept to consider, but when it came to me, it's not something that I could just easily dismiss and walk away from. And then the more I learned on top of the information that I was given, the more it just made sense to me. So if you just turn the dial on the perception knob just a little bit and consider, well, maybe those human-looking things are not containing humans, that would start to make sense what they are doing to the other populations. And also the technology of weather. Some people continue to say, well, humans can't control the weather like that. But what if the technology that's being used is thousands and thousands of years ahead of what we know? If you turn the perception knob that way, then that starts to make sense. Otherwise, nothing makes sense. Nothing lines up. There is no desire for humans to continue on. I mean, they harm our children. They harm our elderly. They harm our social structures. They harm the education. Nothing about this makes sense unless you turn that perception knob. That's for me. That's what I've done, and that's what makes me feel so solid in it.
Yeah, you look at some of the greatest old writings that we have, like from the early Greeks. The period when the Earth was moonless is probably the most remote collection of mankind, Democritus and Anaxagoras, taught there was a time when the earth was without the moon. Aristotle wrote that Arcadia in Greece, before being inhabited by the Hellenes, or the forebears of the Greek people, had a population of Pelagesians, and these aborigines occupied the land already before there was a moon in the sky above the earth. For this reason, they were called proselines or proselines, again, before the moon. Apollonius of Rhodes mentions a time when not all the orbs were yet in the heavens, before the Danae and Deucalion races came into existence. Danae, again, those beings that we know as like the Tuatha De Danann. It's interesting, again, of this in Ireland and up in the British Isles, but we also have the god Danu over in India. In India, Danu is literally an asura. So, Danu is an asura, which, again, what's the asuras? The asuras are the beings that come, land on earth, and take over. They're the ones that give us our religions. They're the ones that demand tribute and sacrifice. They're the ones that set up, again, the sacrificial system, that we know of from the dark history. And they demand the best of everything. Again, this is the tradition that's been handed down to the offspring of the intermingling of these different races. So that's before these races were ever here on the planet. And when only the Arcadians lived, they dwelt on mountains and they fed on acorns before there was a moon. So obviously they weren't eating meat. They were just kind of eating from whatever was naturally provided, more of a grazing. And, again, there's even legends of beings like Qigong masters living hundreds of years in the Kali Yuga. I do think that we're going to go towards being able to draw more life force into us just by will and not having to eat as much. I think that's part of now going into a Bronze Age. It won't happen immediately, but it's going to be kind of what we're working towards as we evolve, because the evolution will be much more rapid now. We've been de-evolving. We've been devolving. And now it's going to go in the opposite direction if you don't go the route of the system. So Plutarch wrote in the Roman Questions, there were Arcadians of Evanders following the so-called pre-lunar people. Similarly, wrote Ovid, the Arcadians are said to possess their land before the birth of Jove, and the folk is older than the moon. Who's Jove? Jupiter, and Jupiter, you could even get into Jehovah, which will tie into, Yahweh again, before these beings were ever here, way before they were here. Obviously, if it's before they were here, those are not the creators, not at all. Hippolytus refers to a legend that Arcadia brought forth the Pelasgus of greater antiquity than the moon. And Lucian, in his astrology, says the Arcadians affirm that in their folly, that they are older than the moon. And then you have other ones. Again, these writings we're talking about here, these are coming as far back as like 800 BC. So they're actually predating anything that's biblical. So, again, it's pretty wild. We've been given a science that explains the system that's in place, but it's a system. And it's a system that utilizes us as a food and energy source. Here you have somebody sharing their experience. There were two beings standing there. There was one very much like the classic reptilian that I described, with the head very much like a T-Rex, and then another being that was about the same size standing next to it, but it was more snake-like, more human-like. Well, that's a Naga, and the Nagas are well known, again, in the Hindu culture. They live inside the earth. They do to this day. The Draco, which are more, way more aggressive, not that you want to be careful with any of them. Again, the Nagas are not fond of us, but at the same time, they don't typically do the type of things to us that the Draco and the like have done. But just know that there are different beings out there of a reptilian nature, just as there are many different types of puppies.
And that their puppies are just so cute.
They are. They are. Yes. I mean, who could deny the cuteness there? That's cuteness overload. So we look forward to your questions and comments. Please do share your thoughts, your experiences. We do appreciate when you hype the videos and you share these videos in other places. It helps to awaken the world. And that's the key to shifting the paradigm.
Indeed.
And thank you for your support on Patreon and with YouTube memberships. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.